If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the like button. Your support helps us share more amazing, heartfelt stories that stay with you long after the screen fades to black. Before we begin, take a quiet moment to subscribe and turn on notifications. Stories like this aren't just something you watch, they're something you feel. If you're drawn to emotional storytelling, soft winter atmospheres, unexpected connections, and moments that feel painfully real, then you're exactly where you're meant to be. Now settle in. Let the noise of your day drift away. And let this story carry you somewhere still, somewhere snow-covered, somewhere neither of them ever planned to be. The road stretched endlessly ahead of Emily, pale and narrow, like a ribbon carelessly dropped across a wilderness of white. Snow clung to the tall pine trees lining either side, their branches heavy and bowed as if burdened by secrets too old to speak aloud. The sky above was an uncertain gray, thick clouds gathering but not yet committed to the storm they were threatening to become. Soft flakes drifted downward, not urgent, not violent, just steady, quiet, almost thoughtful. Emily kept both hands firmly on the steering wheel, even though there wasn't another car in sight. The road was nearly deserted. No headlights in the distance. No hum of passing engines. Only the faint crunch of tires rolling over packed snow. Her fingers tapped lightly against the leather wheel, an old nervous habit she'd never quite managed to break. Top, top, top. A rhythm that matched the restless thoughts she'd been trying to outrun since leaving Boston. 3 months. That was how long it had been since her engagement ended. 3 months since the carefully planned life she thought she was building had unraveled in a single conversation. A conversation she had sensed coming but refused to face. Sometimes denial feels safer than truth, until it isn't. She let out a slow breath, watching it fog faintly against the cold windshield before disappearing. This trip wasn't about running away. At least, that's what she kept telling herself. It was about breathing. About stepping outside the echo chamber of memories and unanswered questions. About giving herself permission to feel something other than disappointment, exhaustion, and that dull ache that had settled into her chest like permanent residency. Vermont this time of year was supposed to be quiet. Almost empty. The rental listing had promised solitude. Frozen lakes, silent forests, long nights wrapped in firelight. No crowds. No distractions. Just space. Space to think. Or maybe space to stop thinking. The cabin came into view just as daylight began surrendering to dusk. It stood tucked between the trees like something from a winter postcard. Small, wooden, dusted with fresh snow. A thin line of smoke curled lazily from the chimney, dissolving into the gray sky. A single porch light glowed warmly, cutting through the growing darkness like a silent invitation. Emily pulled into the gravel clearing and turned off the engine. For a moment she didn't move. The quiet settled over her completely, thick, insulating. No city noise. No buzzing phone. No reminders of the life that had slipped through her fingers. She stepped out of the car, and the cold hit immediately, sharp, biting. It stole her breath and stung her cheeks, but it felt honest. Bracing. Real. She pulled her coat tighter and looked at the cabin again. For the first time in weeks, maybe months, her shoulders lowered. Inside, she imagined herself curled beneath a blanket, a book resting open in her hands, a mug of hot chocolate slowly cooling beside her. No expectations. No conversations to navigate. Just quiet. Just peace. But peace, she would learn, doesn't always arrive the way we expect. As she opened the trunk to grab her bags, headlights suddenly flared behind her. Bright. Sudden. Close. Emily froze. The beams cut through the falling snow, illuminating the clearing in harsh white streaks. A vehicle was approaching along the narrow path she'd just driven. Her stomach tightened. She wasn't expecting anyone. The listing had promised privacy. She'd double-checked the booking details twice. A black SUV rolled to a stop beside her car. The driver's door opened. A man stepped out, brushing snow from his jacket. He looked up, and stopped when he saw her standing there. Surprise flickered across his face. "Hey," he said cautiously, his voice calm but uncertain. "I think there's been some kind of mistake." Emily's brow furrowed. "What do you mean?" "I booked this cabin for the weekend." Her chest dropped. "That's not possible. I booked it too." They stared at each other for a beat before instinctively reaching for their phones. Side by side, in the cold under the dim porch light, they compared confirmation emails. Same cabin. Same dates. Same listing. Same everything. "You've got to be kidding me," Emily muttered. The man ran a hand through his hair, clearly as baffled as she was. "The nearest town is over an hour away," he said. "And it's getting dark. And my car probably won't survive these roads again tonight," she added. A heavy silence settled between them, filled with practicality and a touch of awkwardness. "I'm Daniel," he said finally, offering a small, polite smile. "Emily." She glanced toward the cabin, then back at him. "There are 2 bedrooms," she said carefully. "We could just stay tonight. Figure it out in the morning." Daniel hesitated only briefly before nodding. "Yeah, that makes sense." He paused, then added, "And just so you know, I'm not a serial killer." Despite everything, Emily laughed softly. "Good. That would have been inconvenient." They carried their bags inside together. Warmth wrapped around them immediately. The cabin smelled faintly of pine and aged wood, a scent both grounding and nostalgic. A stone fireplace sat in the corner, waiting patiently to be lit. 2 small bedrooms branched off a narrow hallway. The kitchen was simple but welcoming. It was intimate in the way only secluded spaces can be. Emily set her bags down slowly. Sharing a cabin with a stranger hadn't been part of her healing plan. But Daniel moved through the space respectfully, never too close, never imposing. "I can start a fire," he offered. She nodded. "Thanks." Soon, the crackle of burning wood filled the room. Flames flickered to life, casting dancing shadows across the walls. The cold that had followed them inside began to melt away. They started with safe conversation. The storm forecast. The long drive. The booking mix-up. Neutral topics. Nothing too revealing. But beneath the surface, something unspoken pulsed quietly. They were both here for a reason. And it wasn't just a vacation. As night deepened, the snowfall thickened. Wind howled through the trees, rattling the windows. The outside world slowly disappeared behind a curtain of white. Emily stood by the window, watching flakes swirl in the darkness. "Looks like we're stuck," she said softly. Daniel joined her. "Yeah, guess so." There was no frustration in his voice, just acceptance. Strangely, Emily didn't feel uneasy. For the first time in months, she wasn't replaying arguments in her mind. She wasn't dissecting past mistakes. She was just here. In this cabin. In this storm. In this unexpected moment. After a simple dinner, they sat near the fire with mugs of tea. Flames reflected in Daniel's eyes as he stared into them, thoughtful. Eventually he spoke. "So what brought you out here?" Emily hesitated, watching the firelight shift across the stone. "I needed quiet," she said finally. "My life got messy." She swallowed. "I was supposed to get married last spring." Daniel's expression softened. "I'm sorry." She gave a small shrug. "We wanted different futures. I just didn't want to admit it." He nodded slowly, understanding without prying. "My dad passed away 2 months ago," he said after a moment. "He was my best friend." Emily turned toward him fully then. "That's a lot to carry alone," she said gently. He smiled faintly. "Yeah. I thought a few quiet days might help." Their eyes met, not with pity, not with sorrow, but with recognition. Grief comes in many forms. Lost love. Lost family. Lost plans. And sometimes healing begins not with answers, but with presence. Hours slipped by without them noticing. They talked about photography, baking disasters, getting lost on road trips, the strange comfort of silence. When the power flickered and finally went out, they both laughed. Daniel lit candles. Emily added more wood to the fire. Outside, the storm roared. Inside, something warm and steady began to form. Not dramatic. Not overwhelming. Just gentle. Later, when Emily's eyelids grew heavy, Daniel quietly placed a blanket over her shoulders before retreating to his room. The fire glowed low into the night, and neither of them knew yet that this accident, this mistake, this snowbound evening, would shift something deep within them both. Morning arrived in silence. Emily woke on the couch, wrapped in warmth. Sunlight streamed softly through frosted windows, turning the cabin golden. The storm had passed. Outside, the world was buried in untouched white. Everything looked new. For the first time in a long while, her chest didn't feel tight. It felt open. She didn't know what would happen next. Maybe they'd call the rental company. Maybe one of them would leave. Maybe this would become nothing more than a strange story they'd tell someday. But as she heard Daniel moving quietly in the kitchen, coffee brewing, footsteps soft, she realized something simple and unexpected. Sometimes life doesn't follow plans. Sometimes it reroutes you through snowstorms and mistakes and strangers. And sometimes it places you exactly where you need to be, with someone you never expected, at the moment you needed it most.